Hello and welcome to the Snickerdoodle Knits YouTube channel. I am Jessica, the knitter and designer behind Snickerdoodle Knits. In this video, I'm going to talk all about the Hustle and Bustle Hat design knitting pattern. This hat is one of 4 fingering weight patterns within the A New Home collection. This collection is part of a series of patterns. The previous collection in the series is called My Forever Home, and that collection is all based on my home state, Montana. It includes 5 DK weight patterns, all inspired by Montana landscapes. So then a new home collection is all inspired by the place where I now live, which is North Carolina. My husband and I moved here about a year and a half ago, and so this is our new home, and this collection is all inspired by the landscape and what we see here in North Carolina. So the Hustle and Bustle Hat is inspired by the cities of North Carolina. Probably most people, when they think of North Carolina, don't immediately just think of a big city. Like if you're thinking of cities, you think of New York and you think of New York City, or you're thinking of Washington, D.C., or maybe if you think of California, you think of cities. But I don't think most people probably immediately just associate North Carolina with cities. But for us, we live in the Charlotte area. So North Carolina has 2 major cities, Raleigh and Charlotte. Both metro areas have more than 1 million people, and Charlotte has like 2 million, I think. So we live in the Charlotte area, and the population just in the Charlotte area is more than double of what's in the whole state of Montana. So just for some perspective, that's why I incorporated city life within the North Carolina collection. So Hustle and Bustle is all themed on city life, and it's like really thinking about when you think of the city, especially people who aren't from the city, maybe just think of chaos and randomness and a lot of stress, and like they think of traffic and it just seems like so unorganized, and chaotic is the word that keeps coming to mind. But really, when you think about it, every individual within the city, like, they have a very specific route, a very specific destination that they're going to. And so it's really kind of like an organized chaos. Everybody's going different directions, but everything has a direction and a purpose. And so I thought that's really what all the hustle and bustle is about. It's there's a lot going on, but it's not just chaos and it's not just disorganization. So the stitch pattern motif, it's something that maybe looks like chaos, it maybe looks random, but it's not random. And so what it is it has a varying lengths of lines that go in different directions, diagonal lines, and basically going here and there, to and fro, hustling and bustling. And so these lines are, all going in different directions. They each have their own path, but they each have a very specific purpose. And so then, for the knitting experience, it's not all just random chaos. There is repeats, so everything's repeated 4 times throughout the pattern, the circumference of the hat, and it's very easy to follow. It's a simple knit, and it's just knits and purls, really. So I guess that brings us into the techniques of the pattern. If you are comfortable with working in the round, you totally got this hat. Even if you're a beginner in the round, if you know how to work in the round, this is doable, 100% doable. If you are an adventurous beginner trying to or wanting to learn how to work in the round, this is a great pattern to learn on. In each of my patterns, I have a linked video tutorial to any technique that I think might be new to you. And so those tutorials will really help walk you through the steps of the pattern, so that you can knit with confidence. And so I have those tutorials to support you as you work through the pattern. So let's beat the yarn. The yarn, like I mentioned, all of the patterns within this collection are fingering weight. The yarns that I used for the entire collection, I used Indie hand-dyed yarns local to North Carolina. So this design used yarn from Livin' Vivid Yarns, and this is their MCN fingering base in the trance colorway. So the simple but random appearing texture in this hat really makes it fun to use with pretty much any kind of yarn, but I think it's especially perfect for yarns that are busy. It kind of adds to that whole element of hustle and bustle and chaos and randomness, but the pattern is not busy, so it doesn't conflict with the busyness of the yarn. It's a very simple pattern. It's not trying to like dominate the scene. It's not trying to create a specific visual. So like a lot of times when you have a busy hand-dyed yarn that's very speckled or very highly variegated, the problem that you run into is that when you try to pair it with a design that has a lot of patterning to it, you lose the patterning. With this, the idea is that it's random and it's chaotic, so you're losing nothing. And in that the texture is not overpowering. So yes, it works well with just about any yarn. The only thing that I can think of that might not work well would be like a self-striping yarn that would have really narrow stripes. Now if it's a self-striping yarn that's going to have wide stripes, that would totally work too. But a solid yarn, a tonal yarn, a variegated yarn, a speckled yarn, they'll all look great. If you're wanting to know like what kind of yarns my test knitters used, I recommend you go to the Ravelry pattern page, and towards the top of that page there is a button where you can look at the projects that were made using the pattern, and so that'll give you an idea of what different yarns look like. So if you want to knit the hat, but you're like, I have no idea what color to use, maybe you don't have these crazy fun busy yarns in your stash, what I've done is I've created a blog post for the pattern. So the blog post includes color recommendations and alternative yarn suggestions. What I've done with the first part for the color recommendations is I've gone through Livin' Vivid's color palette, the yarns that they offer on their website, and just hand selected a few of those that I think would look really great. I tried to give a little variety of color schemes and so on that would really look great with the hat. The second half of that blog post is yarn alternative recommendations. So those are more affordable yarns, primarily from like big box stores like Michael's, Knit Picks, Webs, those bigger stores that are able to provide yarn at a lower cost. I have not provided specific color recommendations for those yarns. I recommend that you use the color suggestions that I have above and use that as your inspiration. Like you really love a certain color, then look for that kind of color scheme in the alternative yarn recommendations. But like I said, really just about any yarn will work amazingly with this pattern. It's so versatile, and if you want the texture to really show up, darker yarns will hide the texture and more busy yarns will hide the texture more. So if you really want the patterning to show up, you want a little bit lighter end of the spectrum and a solid color or a tonal color. So we've talked about design inspiration, we've talked about yarns, we've talked about knitting techniques. Let's talk about sizing. So the pattern includes 5 different sizes: child, teen, small adult, medium adult, and large adult. A note on the child size, the sizing recommendations that I use, they don't give like an age size, like a child's age, but what I think it probably most correlates to is something around like an 8 to 10-year-old size, just for your reference. It's not like a baby, it's not like a 2-year-old, it's kind of a, I don't know, between a toddler and a teenager, I guess. It might even be more 6 to 8 year old size. Anyway, it's in that range, maybe 6 to 10 years old. And then on each of the pattern pages, I have all of the dimensions. So I have the hat circumference and the hat height, and a little note on the hat height in a little bit. And I have the head size that it was designed to fit. So this hat is designed to have negative ease, so that it fits snugly. It is a lightweight hat, but it's just like a beanie style. Let's see here. So it's intended to fit a little snugly. When you're choosing the, let's see here. When you're choosing the size, nope, I haven't woven in my ends yet. When you're choosing size, you want to choose the size according to the circumference. So if you have big hair, and you know you have big hair, measure your head circumference based on your hair, because of course your hair is going to be below your hat. So choose your size according to the circumference, and then the hat length can be adjusted. So the hat length that I've provided there is just like the standard hat length if you just follow the pattern, but I've also included in the pattern instructions on how to lengthen the hat. It just is a matter of repeating some rows until you get to the height that you want. So I've included those instructions if you want a slouchier style. So that's that on sizing. Let's see, is there anything else to chat about? Design inspiration. Talked about yarns, talked about sizing. I think that's everything except for all about the project page. So I have a link down in the description box below, and that link will bring you to the project page on my website. So that has all of the information on the project as far as yarn requirements, and in that yarn requirements section I have that blog post linked, of course, to the color and yarn recommendations. That blog post is also linked within the pattern. And then on that pattern page on my website, I also have information on knitting techniques that are used in the pattern. I have information on what the knitting experience is like. I have information on like when you're gonna want to wear the hat, because this is a lightweight hat. It's not like your chunky, cozy hat that you're gonna want to wear in the middle of a blizzard. This is more like for transitional weather or like in a mild climate, kind of more like here in North Carolina. And so yes, it has all of that information, and then it also has the links to where you can purchase the pattern. So the pattern is available on Payhip, Ravelry, and LoveCrafts. If any of that changes in the future, that will all be updated on the website. So all of the sources will always be on the website. And that's how you can gain all of the information about the pattern, how you can gain access to purchase the pattern. And if you have any additional questions, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. I'm happy to answer those. And that's the Hustle and Bustle hat. I just thought of something I was going to share. Oh, so release date for the Hustle and Bustle hat is Saturday, November 21st, which is North Carolina's birthday. And then it will be available. So that's November 21st, 2020. And then it will be available. Of course, all of the pattern information is on that pattern page, and the links will be ready as soon as the pattern's available to purchase. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful and informative. I hope that it answered any questions that you had about the hat, and that it really makes you excited about knitting it. It really is a fun, simple knit that's engaging, but really doesn't require a lot of concentration. It's great travel knitting, great TV knitting, great, I just need a break knitting. So I hope that you really love the pattern and find it an enjoyable knit. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the Snickerdoodle Knits YouTube channel. I post YouTube video tutorials on knitting techniques that I use within my patterns, as well as videos that are all about the design overview of each of my patterns. So videos just like this one. So if you hit the notification bell, you will receive a notification every time I upload a new video. I hope to see you around. Happy knitting!